All right, welcome to the Crowley channel, episode 12. Well, actually, this is Kurt Crowley. I guess I'm pinch hitting for Ed Morrissey because Ari Kaufman hasn't been on Ed lately, but we've got him on here tonight. And what's going on, Mr. Kauf?
It's 9:03, 9:04 p.m. and it's still a little bit of light left here in central Minnesota, and I'm sure in Lincoln as well, on the 24th of July. So we're 35 days or so past the summer solstice and still enjoying the post 9 p.m. daylight here in the north. And the Minnesota Twins game ended tonight before the sunset, which means I think the fireworks probably had to be delayed. Isn't that how it works?
Probably. It seems like they still do those fireworks shows. I saw Bismarck Lark's promo, and they were doing a fireworks show in like Civil Twilight. But
Civil Twilight. Yes.
What went on in Twinkie Land today? Even though they're big four-way battle for last place in the American League Central.
Is it a four-way battle? You threw the Indians in there.
Cleveland, the Cleveland
Indians.
Here, I could put it up right now. I know you don't want to see it. But
I could
as soon as I could put this down.
I could have worn my Indians hat tonight. I really would have. It's right over there somewhere. Oh, somewhere.
There it is. Now I got to ask you this. What happens to the movie Major League?
Well, that's a good question. What happens to highlight reels and anything else and all the gear will still be up for sale at other places. It's interesting. I want to read what a friend of mine, Nate, wrote me, who's a smart guy and not a crazy woke person, and not, he's not lecturing me, but he had a good point about why the name isn't that bad. So I always got to give equal time to people, right? And he said, let's see. He said, hold on.
Go ahead, right.
Here it is. He said, I know you hate the name since you're a fan of the team, which is true. Anyone who's a longtime fan of the team, if they're lying to you, they say they don't like that they like the name change because it has history with you and your family and everything. So there's no reason you would like it unless
it goes back generations, literally.
Right. You wouldn't like if the Brewers changed their name because beer is bad. I mean, he said the unfortunate reality is that it was inevitable, which we know is true. It was inevitable because 11 people on Twitter got mad, and that means the GM and Major League Baseball have to cower to them instead of actually standing up and making an argument. But he said, but as an outsider, he lives in California, I love the fact they kept the DIANS from Indians and just added GUAR. Right. And it's cool that they are able to keep the lettering scheme as a way to honor the tradition of the franchise, and a much better name than the Spiders. I actually didn't mind the Spiders. I thought the Spiders would have been better.
Yeah, I wouldn't have minded it neither. I was worried that the team was going to pick up and move to Louisville and become the Breonna Taylors. That's what I was worried about.
Well, the Guardian thing is
one stone.
The Guardian thing is it's like Titans. It's sort of a childish name to me. And of course, when you look more into what that bridge, which I've been on, I mean, there's satirical articles out there about it, but my God, I mean, the Guardians, I mean, talk about white supremacy. I mean, my gosh, that's these four strong men with colonial implements in their hand, covered wagons, and standing on top of the bridge, looking powerful. There's a lot of imperialistic overtones of these people. Yes. Brutal. So your friend Mr. BB sending you that logo, is he proud of such masculine, colonial, misogynistic, white cisgender men that are on top of that bridge? Seems very racist and homophobic, and it's bigoted to me, that logo.
No, I mean, I kind of looked at it, and some of it looked like a bit like a comic book to me.
Yeah, yes, that was my first.
And that's what came to me. I know it doesn't bother me. There are worse names they kind of came up with, like North Dakota Fighting Hawks come to mind.
So many better options for North Dakota, like Rough Riders and things like that. They could have come up with, yeah.
And you watch like any of their hockey games, being
we know
they're like a one-trick pony. They're not really, they're Division II and everything else, but in hockey, they're an NCAA perennial contender. But you see their whole fan base. You remember the 5 overtime game against Duluth, and all the fans are wearing their old gear.
Yeah, and they always will. And that's not
20 years from now, they will be.
They're not trying to stick it in the face of anyone. I mean, that's the gear they have. The new gear is boring. It's a stupid name. There was no reason to change it, obviously. But the point of that is, it's also North Dakota. This is not New York, San Francisco, Chicago, or even Cleveland. These are generally conservative, traditional farming folk. They're not interested in the political correctness. And believe me, at the Indians games next year, 80% of people wearing gear will still be wearing Indians gear. If it's 20% wearing the new gear, I'd be surprised if it's more than 20%. You'll have a few trendy folks, and heck, I'm not getting it, but I could see how it might be interesting to get a new hat. But most people over 40 or 50 are going to be wearing their gear. They're still wearing Chief Wahoo, and it's been 3 years since they retired him. 2 years.
I think they actually put out a release asking people not to wear Chief Wahoo, which they pay who knows how much to buy a old Cleveland jersey. How much these jerseys cost. I mean, that's
going to make people want to wear it more, by the way. That's terrible PR, but it's a terribly run franchise. I hate to say it. The two teams I cheer for, the Indians and Twins, maybe because I pay attention to them more, but I think they have the two worst front offices in baseball. And judging by, the Twins, with the amount of talent they have to be underachieving like they are, and the Indians, in the past, some of their deals they've made, it's a terribly run franchise. They made a terrible decision. The Twins made a terrible decision to put George Floyd's name on the wall, to bow to Black Lives Matter last year. It's amazing. The two teams that I kind of cheer for, and the Padres are a whole different story. They're not political, but they are run by people who have had 15 years to do something and haven't. And just because they win 1 or 2 years doesn't mean that they shouldn't have lost their jobs long ago.
All of a sudden, they seem to have a bit of a fan base out there in San Diego, though.
People like winning teams, but they're still in third place. Ironically,
they're in the group of death. If the season ended today, they go to Los Angeles for a playoff game. Meanwhile,
and that's another terrible Major League Baseball rule, to have a one game playoff for the Dodgers and Padres, who are both going to win close to 100 games. Or the Tampa Bay Rays in Oakland.
The winner of that plays San Francisco more. If the season ended today, and the way pandemic numbers are going up, who knows?
San Francisco may not hold on. By the way, they have a good team, much better than I realized. And they have good pitching, which is the reason. But it's still July. I don't know that San Francisco is going to hold off, because the Dodgers and Padres. I mean, the Dodgers have had a lot of injuries, and Bellinger's a disaster. He won't be there once they get some more players back. Bobby's friend Bellinger is hitting 139 or something. I mean, talk about a 1 or 2 year wonder. I called that guy right away.
Oh, he killed it in the Little League World Series. So pull up that tape on YouTube or wherever your favorite.
But the 1 game wild card playoff, Kurt, is just a dumb idea. I don't know. I mean, last year you had the weird setup. I kind of liked it, even though I don't really like having 16 teams in. But the 1 game playoff for teams that win 100 games is a bad idea. And with all the changes that the moron commissioner, and he is the worst, as much as I dislike the basketball commissioner or the football commissioner, Rob Manfred is by far the worst commissioner in the history of any pro sport. There's not a doubt, and that's not a debatable fact if you look at what he's done to the game, both on the field and off. All the changes he makes, that's an easy one. Make the wild card best of 3. I mean, my gosh, the playoffs are short enough as it is. You don't play 162 games, win 100 of them, and then have a 1 game playoff. It's so absurd.
Right. And then you look at the National League East and the National League Central. 10 teams.
Yeah.
One of them's going to be playing in the National League Championship Series.
Yeah, and that's right, because the wild card team plays the team. If the Giants or whatever finish with the best record, I guess it's possible.
We're going to have most likely a National League Central versus National League East division series.
Yeah.
And based on the standings for the last
Mm.
month, that would be the Milwaukee Brewers and the New York Mets. Somebody's
Yeah.
going to the NLCS.
And that's why, whether you reseed in the playoffs or abolish divisions, and all sports seem to be guilty of this. I don't think that just because there's nothing to take away from your Brewers, who will probably win 90 plus games and deserve to get in, because the Central is not a bad division. I mean, obviously the Reds are good. The Cubs
Right.
and Cardinals are average, but can be good. But teams in football that go 8-8, I mean, the whole idea is if you're playing in a bad division, you're already benefiting from playing in the bad teams in your division. Why are you rewarded over a team that did really well but came in second or third in a really good division? The Padres and Dodgers and Giants are playing each other a lot. Now they do get to beat up on Arizona and to some degree Colorado, but I would reseed, if anything, reseed. The Padres and Dodgers should if they win, should play the Mets or whomever.
Right. And, it's taking a page out of your favorite book, Soccer. What would be wrong with just having two? It'll never happen. But if you just had two 15-team tables, and let's say right now, San Francisco would be first, Los Angeles would be second, San Diego would be third, Milwaukee has the fourth best record. And then whoever, maybe the Mets would be the fifth, number 5 seed. And then you would have the Brewers and the Mets actually playing in a wild card game, and the winner of that would play the number 1 seed. And the reason you're not going to see that is because MLB likes their rivalries a little much. They like having the Padres play the Dodgers 19.
Well, yeah, they played last year in the playoffs. I mean, people forget the Padres, as good as they were. I guess there were 4 rounds of the playoffs. They did beat St. Louis, but they got knocked out by the Dodgers, 2 rounds before the World Series. I mean, even though the Padres may have been better than the Braves, maybe, it's hard to say, or so.
But the Braves have regressed this year.
No pitching, and then they lose their best hitters. So the Mets are, on paper, not overly impressive, and I'm surprised at how the Phillies and Nationals have underachieved, and even the Marlins, because those teams, again, I look at things on paper are pretty good teams, all 3 of them. And, the Nationals, they weren't that good in 2019, frankly, until the final month, I guess. But the Phillies should be better. Joe Girardi, I'm not a Girardi hater like some New Yorkers I know, but he's starting to prove himself to be not that great a manager. A lot of people in New York didn't like him. They were glad he went away. And he's now had 2 years in Philadelphia that have been underwhelming, to put it mildly, I'd say, considering that team has some talent.
Yes, exactly. Oh, by the way, as an aside, in a bobblehead war tonight, you got me. I gotta admit, you've got me outnumbered. You've got literally half the presidents of the United States who've all served in the military, and all I've got is Al Hrabosky. And well, you know what? I would take Al Hrabosky in a war against 20 early U.S. presidents.
You take Bobrovsky over Andrew Jackson? I don't know. Old Hickory was pretty tough.
Andrew Jackson was confused with Peter Gammons for a while.
Right. Yeah, those are the political ones. The sports ones, are all over here. You got Trevor Hoffman riding into the Hall of Fame right here, and you got I don't know. There's a few others.
I'm surprised he haven't made the trip to Milwaukee, because they've been giving out 35,000 bobbleheads. They're making up for some of the promotions they lost.
So they're doing that, and the Twins are making up for last year by giving out bobbleheads to the first 5,000 fans and splitting them up. And the cheap ass Twins, you got to get there at 3:30 in the afternoon and have a backpack in your
right. I almost feel like for those, you have to bring a tent, camp out there the night before,
yep,
and sit in the 95-degree heat for half the day. Just
all that for a Josh Donaldson, bringer of rain bobblehead. He's brought the rain about 11 times this year.
Or a Joey Gallo bobblehead.
Yeah, so that was only 7,000 when we went down in Texas, right?
Right. Yeah, it's like I've got to sit 6 hours, and I mean, I would need about 2 gallons of water to get through that.
Right, you had to sit out. Right, it was 102 degrees outside. At 4, you had to stay outside. Yeah, I asked some people when they got there. They said 2 hours early. I mean, that's Because you and I got there about 45 minutes early, and it was like, forget it. 20,000 people are already there.
Yeah, I didn't have any grandiose dreams of scoring that. You can always get them on eBay or wherever, but they had the Paul Molitor, but they did a Hank Aaron bobblehead for the 70s, and they did a Paul Molitor one for the 80s, and only 25,000 showed up for that.
Oh wow!
I'm going. They got 10,000 of them that they're gonna. I don't know. Maybe they can sell off at the Wisconsin State Fair or something like that. But they have not been. Yeah, bobblehead day. And it used to be all fans and everyone. I mean, they crammed the place for it, but now it's only the first 35,000, which compared to the rest of the teams in Major League Baseball are pretty good. But
yeah, the Cardinals do 30,000, I believe. Now, they're going to draw probably 40 on those days, but I went to a Cardinal game when they were giving out for the first 30, and I got there about 45 minutes early, and I got, and that's kind of what I think it should be. I'm not saying you have to do it for all fans because you don't know what the attendance is going to be, but you should do it for enough people that if you get there 30 to 45 minutes early, you can still get one. Now, if you walk in like the trendy people from the bar right at first pitch, forget it. You're not interested in the bobblehead.
Right.
But get there 30, 45 minutes early, you should be able to get one, not 2.5 hours early, standing outside in the heat.
Oh, yeah. I didn't get something once because like I didn't get my ticket. It was like a work outing, and my trendy coworkers are all at the bar. I couldn't get my ticket to run over there and get the whatever they were giving out that night. They were busy pre-gaming.
I'm looking at those Hank Aaron bobbleheads, and they're in the $20, $25 range. But then, of course, they charge $15 to ship. So you're looking at close to $40, which is, it's a little higher than I'd like to pay.
Yeah, it is. There's no shortage of bobbleheads in the world. Of I saw your sliding Paul Molitor. Was he in a powder? Is he in a powder blue?
Yeah, Paul. Sorry, folks. Let me just.
It says what he's going to show you is Paul Molitor bobblehead from several years ago. Yeah, he's got the batting helmet with the white panel, and he's in a head-first slide. And today he'd have to wear an oven mitt.
Official sausage of the Milwaukee Brewers. You know what it is?
Not no more. I mean, since then they went with Johnsonville, which has been trying to evolve into more of a national brand because you cannot spell USA. You can't spell sausage without USA.
Oh, I like Clemens.
I never thought of that.
That's good. I like that. I like a good Clemens bratwurst from Quick Trip anytime.
Oh, I've been in the next few weeks. I am heading up your way, and the first thing I'm doing is I'm hitting Quick Trip for a couple brats.
What's the closest Quick Trip to your house? Worthington?
Not Worthington. It's not in Worthington. I would say maybe Burlington, Iowa, where it would be called Quick Star.
I think Worthington's closer to you than Burlington, Iowa.
Yeah, but they don't have it in. I don't run into them until I get the I-23. I'd have to hit I-23.
Yeah, it's only 3 hours.
There's a way up from where I am. I can hit. I could go straight north to Sioux Falls and then go straight east. I don't know. You like your back roads, your dirt roads.
It's a 2-lane, 4-lane. I just go up to Sioux City, and then you pick up 20. Is it 23 or 75 or 60? And it takes you right into Worthington, and you take the back roads from there through Wilmer. It saves off 70 or 80 miles in probably about 20 minutes. And you don't have to worry about Twin Cities traffic and murders.
Right, but it's until I get to Wilmer that I finally find one, or maybe just before I get to Wilmer. And I did an article on because you cover the St. Cloud Rocks. I decided to cover the Mankato Moondocks but we should also talk about the Wilmer Stingers and Brady Consul just graduated from high school, Minnesota, University of Minnesota commit, and he's been playing middle infield for him. It looks just like the old man.
He does. He's a good ball player. He's at Wilmer, but Wilmer's having a bad year. By the way, there he is, Chief Wahoo. By the way, folks, Chief Wahoo. Smiling. Now, I will admit, 'cause I'm an honest person.
Censored, canceled.
I will admit.
The movie Major League never, they're going to have to do a remake of Major League and they have to be the Cleveland Guardians now.
No, they don't. And the word Indian is not offensive. The Indianapolis Indians still have it. And look, I will admit, I'm a fair person, that the Chief Wahoo logo with the wooden teeth is not the most appealing logo, much like the Redskins logo, much like the Chicago Blackhawks logo, who somehow never have been asked to change their logo, the Chicago Blackhawks.
It's coming. It's coming. Even
good. You know what? I'm all for equity here, or equality, because
there's a junior team out in Portland. They're called the Winterhawks. And they had a Blackhawks-like logo. They have gotten rid of that logo.
Oh, Portland, my God.
According to Paul Lucas over at Uniwatch, one of your favorites.
Very important. Look, why are the Fighting Hawks have a hawk? Anyway, it's but yeah, the Chief Wahoo with the smiling face, a little bit uncouth. I don't think it really has any effect in anyone's life, to be honest. Native Americans, when polled, have always overwhelmingly, at least when I've read, said they don't care. They have much bigger concerns in the world. Paul Lucas and Bob Bajek and Jared Morris and Ryan Phillips and Theo Epstein and Josh Stein and Rob Manfred, they may not have bigger concerns.
Have you let anyone else off? You left Sarah Peterson off.
Yeah, and Joe Biden for they may have fewer concerns because they're upper middle class white progressives, but the Native Americans up on the reservations near me and you, they have bigger concerns than what the last name of a goddamn baseball team in Cleveland is, or North Dakota, or.
And I've been to outside of Ashland. They have a tribal land. They have a little casino. You've driven by there. A number of times. I've stayed there a number of times. Actually, a very nice place, but it supports their incomes and their livelihoods because a lot of them are struggling out there. The ones that live out in the tribal lands.
Well, yeah. If you've driven through Washington County, Nebraska, on your way up to Sioux City on 77, yeah. Now, ironically, the high school and the police station and the hospital are really good looking because that's all funded by the government. But the other side of the street where you see the private homes, not as nice. So the government funded facilities look pretty nice. Their football field has turf and everything, better than most small towns. But it's a strange situation that a lot of people in the East who don't live near reservations don't know about. And in California, the tribes, generally speaking, are wealthy because those casinos do really, really, really well. I grew up in California. I thought most Native Americans were wealthy, because you see them on the commercials during the elections and all the time with their suits on and their beautiful casinos. And maybe they were just the leaders, but it's a little different in California than it is in the Dakotas and in Minnesota and in Montana and Iowa and Nebraska.
And the backwoods of northern Wisconsin.
Right. Anywhere in the upper Midwest.
The backwoods of northern Nebraska.
Right. And the Seminole tribe does pretty well, actually, too, in Florida. And that's also why they haven't asked FSU to change their mascot, because they have a good relationship with them, apparently.
Oh, and something else I want to mention, it's about 25 minutes into this. Actually, I got a couple. I was watching the Brewers game tonight before we got on, and whether you like instant replay or not, it's here to stay. And most of the time they get it right.
Yeah.
But there was this play tonight. There was like the bases are loaded and the batter hit an exit velocity of 15 miles an hour. Pitcher grabs the ball, tries to throw to home plate. The ball hits the umpire.
Oh, jeez.
So the run scores. But because it hit the umpire, didn't go flying anywhere, no more runs scored. Well, on the next pitch, the pitcher, Corbin Burns, it appeared that he was going to ask for a new baseball. But no, he stepped forward, he tossed the ball to home plate, and the catcher stepped on home plate. Mm-hmm. And the ump went safe. Well, Craig Counsell challenged. They went to review, which seemed to take forever. And the replays showed that the runner missed home plate by a mile. And you'll be reading a little bit about this. So it took about 3 minutes to determine that. And the umps finally called the runner out. And now Tony La Russa, the one-time legal, who was one-time law student, came out and argued for about 5 minutes. So then the umpires went out and reviewed the review, and then came out and finally said, basically, after further review, the Chicago White Sox suck, and they always will suck. Let's play on. Well, this is about 10 minutes of my life and 40,000 that were at American Family Field.
That's a good series, by the way, that even ESPN is apparently going to televise tomorrow. Heaven forbid they're going to.
What's the occasion?
The Yankees are playing the Red Sox this weekend, so it's a big deal that they're not showing Yankees Red Sox on Sunday. Oh my God.
So, I mean, it's only once every 6 years now that the White Sox come up to Milwaukee.
Yeah.
But I have to be reminded of, we know all about the Chicago Cubs fan base, but I'm reminded once every 6 years just how obnoxious a fan base the Chicago White Sox.
They are. They're Chicagoans are Chicagoans. Just because they're more working class doesn't mean they're not anymore not obnoxious. They're Chicagoans.
Right. Yeah. Speaking of Jared Morris, yeah, he's.
Jared's a little different because he didn't grow up in Chicago. I'm talking about the typical, Italian sausage, Italian beef eating, union guy from South Side of Chicago. That guy, whatever it might be.
Naperville roots for the Cubs. It's a southern suburb, isn't it?
It's a western. That's a mix. It's a western suburb. So you can go either way when you're out in Aurora, Naperville.
Oh, so they go with the Cubs. The Ville,
right? Yeah, I think if you're north, it's Cubs. South, you're White Sox. West, you're in between. You can go either way.
It seems like the White Sox, to me, seem like more like a mid-market or even small market team.
They are.
Because their fan base goes into northern Indiana a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit amongst the Northwest Indiana, like working class folks. But you find Cubs fans, aside from finding them all around the country, there are so many Cubs fans in Indianapolis that I knew. And that's just because they see them more on WGN. And then at the time they were winning more. It was just 2006, 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever. I do very few White Sox fans in Indy. You get out to Terre Haute in the Western Indiana, you get some Cardinal fans. And of course you go east, you get a little more Reds fans. So that's why Indianapolis doesn't have a major league team.
Yeah, I mean, I worked for someone who liked the Brewers. She married a White Sox fan. It was, oh, they're in a different league. I can do it.
Well, the White Sox are, they're going to win that division just like the Indians and Twins did in the past. It's a mirror image of when the Indians would win the division by June 1st. And I'd say to all you people, they're not that good. They played a terrible division and they always failed in the playoffs. The Twins the last 2 years won the division. Last year, they kind of backed into it. But in 2019 and most of 2020, they were up big the whole season. And they were good, but not great.
I'll tell you what happens with the Twins next year. They start 20-23. Rocco Baldelli gets fired. Then the team wins 13 in a row, and they win the American League Central. And they lose in the first round to the New York Yankees.
That sounds about right.
Well, if they play 162 games.
Yeah, the Twins, every team has injuries. I mean, the Angels are playing without Trout and Rendon. Yankees, they keep saying the Twins, well, they've had injuries. What besides Byron Buxton?
White Sox have injuries.
Everyone has injuries besides Byron Buxton. What significant injuries have the Twins had?
The Milwaukee Bucks had to win 2 playoff games without Giannis, for crying out loud.
Right, and basketball, it matters even more. So there's no excuse for Rocco Baldelli taking a team that has 95 to 100 win talent and probably going to lose close to 95 games. And the excuse is they had injuries. No, they didn't. They did not have injuries. Jake Cave was out for 2 months. So, I mean, Max Kepler went on the DL for 10 days. They did not have injuries.
Byron Buxton.
That's what I said.
I mean, he had a WAR, whatever you want to do with that stat. But he managed to have a WAR of 2.7 in just 27 games played.
Right. And I said that. He was great, although they were not doing that well when he was playing either. They were bad from day one this year. They started the year 6-15. So it didn't matter. They have a terrible manager. The bullpen's lost like 33 games.
Where would they be without Byron Buxton? 3-18.
Yeah, so he won 3 games for them. So again, it wouldn't have mattered. They're a team that they're managing, and their pitching coach, obviously, and their bullpen is screwed them up. And having Josh Donaldson making that kind of money, now he's been healthy after the first 2 weeks, but he sucks. I mean, for a guy making $24 million, he's hitting $240 with like 13 home runs.
They've been trying to unload him to the New York Mets.
Right, no one would want that. Why would anyone want this guy? He's 36 years old and making way too much money. That's why their front office is terrible. Now, will the Cubs start getting rid of people? That's a good question because they're what, 10 out?
They already got rid of one. Look, they were in contention 1 minute, and then a 12-game losing streak later, all of a sudden it was a fire. It's a fire sale.
Well, 10 back is not insurmountable, but 10 back in fourth place, that's the problem for the Cubs. So they're going to have to dump Chris Bryant, and I don't know who else they're going to get rid of. I mean, they were screwed up by Theo Epstein. I don't care if he won a World Series. He's not a good general manager. He leaves teams when they're not as good as they were before. He hired Joe Madden, who's a terrible manager. He's terrible, and he's an asshole as a human being too. But look at how much better Milwaukee. I can't. Most people in America can't name 4 players on the Milwaukee Brewers.
You know what's sad? I'll wear Milwaukee Brewers or even Milwaukee Bucks gear here in Nebraska, and no one knows what's that logo. What's that logo here?
That's amazing.
They don't know.
That logo's been around for 50 years.
I don't want to pick on Nebraska, but they don't. I'll wear Green Bay Packers gear. And it's, oh, you're a Packers fan. Yeah. That strikes up a million conversations.
Well, Nebraska's pro baseball situation is pretty much Cubs and Royals. To me, it seems like those are the teams they know about. Maybe the Cardinals.
Yeah, it seems like half the people I know in Nebraska root for the Cubs or the Royals. One of those two.
Well, the Brewers, have been good off and on for the last 10, 15 years, but in their history, they're not a team that everyone knows about. They've changed the logo a few times, but the Bucks, until 3 years ago, no, the Bucks were the most obscure team in the NBA. I think you and I went to the game 7 or 8 years ago. I mean, you could have paid people to go to that game, right? I mean,
right
in November at the old Bradley Center.
Yes. Yep. No, those are freebies I actually got.
Well, and you know what's interesting, Kurt? I think I told you this at the Northwoods League All-Star game in Mankato on Tuesday night. There were people there wearing their baseball jerseys from the various Northwoods teams. I saw at least a half a dozen people wearing Milwaukee Bucks jerseys.
Yeah, I mean, at least it's caught on.
Well, I'm trying to figure it out because it's Mankato, Minnesota, which is no closer to Milwaukee than we are here in central Minnesota. But I think there were a lot of fans that came in from Wisconsin supporting their Northwoods League teams.
Right.
And they decided to wear their Giannis jerseys. It was Tuesday night. It was game 6.
Right.
So I thought it was kind of cool. There were a lot of young people wearing their Bucks jerseys, the black one especially, which is a cool jersey.
And something else, Ari, I will turn on Australian rules football at 2 a.m, which I haven't done lately because the pandemic has hit out there, and they're playing without fans, so they're moving games that would be in Melbourne to Sydney or whatever. But when they actually have fans there, you will notice a number of Milwaukee Bucks jerseys.
Just recently, though.
Australia is in the basketball period.
But just in the last year or two, right?
Just in the last 2 or 3 years, right. I would even say.
Hey, your friend Bob Bajek's going to be cheering for the Bucks soon. I mean, whoever wins the championship, that's his team.
We watched the game 5, which now I've got to say, and I know you're not into NBA. I'm not into NBA a whole lot, but those were some riveting games.
I think the first 2 games were blowouts, and then
the alley-oop in game at the end of game 5. Those are moments that are going to be remembered in Milwaukee forever. And
they should be. The Bucks, it was a great thing. And they came back from 0-2 down and won the last 4. And Phoenix is not an unlikable team. I mean, Chris Paul gets on my nerves a little bit. But Booker seems like a nice kid. He's going to play in the Olympics, which I respect, after losing the NBA finals to go off to Tokyo to represent your country, unlike some other guys who wouldn't, obviously. Phoenix is a likable team. It was great to not have who in the finals. the illiterate scumbag bigot.
His name rhymes with LeBron.
Sames. Yeah. But not just him, though. I don't need more Steph Curry. I don't need more Klay Thompson. I don't need more Steve I Hate America Kerr. And frankly, see, that's the thing. The Bucks are the 10th team, different NBA team to win a title this century. And of course, you got a bunch of them. The Spurs won 5. And I mean, credit for the Spurs. They're not a major market. I know.
And you got the Lakers, and then whatever I call is Team LeBron, whatever team LeBron James plays for, whether it's called the Cavaliers,
wherever he runs to for the year.
Lakers. They're kind of like their own franchise, and they win most years or have won most years.
not having him there, not having Curry, not having Kevin Durant, who's turned into a little bit of a jackass lately.
Well, that was the second he left Oklahoma City. He used to have a backpack and a Bible. He got rid of that the second
he went to LA, or not LA, to the San Francisco and to Brooklyn. And even Kawhi Leonard, who I think seems like a decent guy, I didn't need to see him anymore.
Aztec.
Yeah, but it was nice to see these two teams. I wouldn't have minded if Atlanta had been either. I mean, I knew once Brooklyn and LA got knocked out, and it was going to be a better situation this year than having, Cleveland and Golden State for 11 straight years, or Toronto and Golden State, or
at least Kawhi got Toronto a title.
Yeah,
left 3 minutes later, but he gave Toronto a title.
Yeah, and I have no idea who the Lakers beat last year in the finals because it was not a real
Miami.
Yeah, no, that's a great trivia question that no one will remember because that's not a real title. LeBron does not. That's not a real title. They had 5 months off middle of the season and played no road games in the playoffs. And I say the same thing for the Dodgers. Well, I'll give them a little more because they had to travel. Well, not really. They didn't travel. They traveled to Texas. They didn't play any road games. So I don't know. I think both those championships have a small asterisk. Again, I've told you this before. I don't think it means those weren't the best teams last year. But when you don't play any road games, like Milwaukee had to go to Phoenix and Brooklyn and Atlanta, I'm not saying the Lakers went to one, but you played a bunch of games in front of no fans in a high school gym in Orlando. Sorry, it's not the same.
They basically played in a television studio.
Right. And the Dodgers played in front of some fans against the Rays in the World Series, but they were mostly Dodger fans. They didn't have to travel to Atlanta or Tampa. Again, would they have won? Actually, I don't know if they would have beaten Atlanta if they had actually had to play road games. Atlanta had a 3-1 lead. So
no, a lot of road teams win in Atlanta.
They do. But Mookie Betts had his 1 year he had played well, and now he's back to being an average player making $50 gazillion.
Well, we're about 40 minutes into this, and you are wearing your Alpha News.
I am wearing my Alpha News shirt. Yes,
it's a despised news organization to some. But I saw here in Lincoln making some rounds this week on Thursday. I saw an Alpha News truck in Lincoln, Nebraska.
It's unfortunate you couldn't document that because I talked to the higher ups there and they do not believe they have trucks in Lincoln, Nebraska. So
I was doing rounds related to my job.
You were in Lincoln though. You were still in Lincoln.
I'm driving. I can't take pictures of something I happen to see on the road. But indeed, that this was like a UFO sighting. I go, well, that kind of looked like I saw something strange in the sky. Could have been some, TV antenna or something, but some drone. Could have been a drone. But this was an Alpha News truck that I saw in broad daylight here in Nebraska.
It's hard.
But besides that, you have made news this week, and I am going to pull this up here. I really want to talk about Aaron Rodgers. No, I shouldn't talk about Aaron Rodgers because that's.
He's busy playing golf. Leave him alone.
Well, he says he has completed his normal off-season program, and Las Vegas has taken the number of wins that the Packers will win off the books because they are afraid that he is going to announce his retirement this coming week. It's supposed to be the opening of training camp. And wide receiver Davante Adams in the final year of a 4-year, $58 million contract. So he'll get paid $15 million this year if you or I were the quarterback. But he is both he and Rodgers posted cryptic Instagram posts related to The Last Dance earlier this weekend, which is supposed to mean, and I guess Las Vegas Raiders quarterback Derek Carr is recruiting Davante Adams to come out to the Raiders when his contract ends out last year. What all of this means, I don't know. I hope Rodgers retires because you know what? Packers can go 4-13. I'll stick with Jordan Love as my quarterback. this just in, the Green Bay Packers will still field an NFL team in 2021.
Well, that's good. That's good for the economy.
Now,
Mm.
oh yeah, and there will even be fans in Lambeau Field.
Yeah, and the
They
Green
won't
Bay
have
Booyah will still play
10,000
until August 15th.
Aaron Rodgers does not play. They had a chance to get a whole bunch of draft picks. Just trade them to freaking 49ers. They had a chance that it was shocked the world. It would have pissed a lot of people off initially, but we would have got over it. But what I've got here in front of me are some of your recent work with Alpha News, and actually, that's just your commentary. The one that made waves late this week. Go reset everything that went, because it happened in your area in a community just outside of St. Cloud. Tell me what happened. It's been picked up by the national news media.
Well, this is the second or third article I've written on this topic. Sartell is a suburb of St. Cloud, a wealthy, fast-growing, probably 16, 17,000 people, but 15 years ago it had 5,000, I'm guessing. Predominantly white, affluent, pleasant area that people move to for the good schools. A couple of my softball teammates teach there. It's a young and diverse staff, both ethnically diverse and experience-wise. But much like most of the schools in the country, and I say most, not just some, there's the outside influencers and maybe some people within are trying to bring critical race theory into the schools, which of course is not just about teaching about racism and slavery. It's teaching that white people the country was founded on white supremacy or on slavery. White people are basically for lack of a better term, discriminatory, bigots, and evil. And then minorities, Robin DiAngelo, Ibram X. Kennedy, and Nicole Hannah-Jones from New York Times 1619 Project, and also demeaning toward blacks. It says the blacks are basically hopeless and can't get ahead unless we do various things to help them. And if it was just about diversifying the schools, maybe doing some busing or some open enrollment, some people might oppose it, but that's not the topic. The topic is whether they should bring in critical race theory. And so Sartell had a $80,000 equity audit that began last year from a far, far left group in Minneapolis called Equity Alliance of Minnesota. And the audit was there ostensibly to talk about what they can do to be a better school or more diverse. But it's a left-wing group that basically wanted to find a way to say, you're a racist district and you need critical race theory being taught. The teachers in Sartell don't know this. It's still summertime. They probably wouldn't even know if they were teaching it, if it was built in the curriculum, but a lot of them would probably oppose it. And so students were required to complete this survey from Equity Alliance, but they weren't allowed to discuss it with their parents. So there were questions all about race, all about what gender you are, which to a fourth grader is like, what gender am I?
A child cannot discuss this with their parents?
Correct. And that's why this little girl, Haley Yasger, and I interviewed her uncle for the newsletter, for the article. She said, my teacher said I could not skip any questions, even when I didn't understand them. One asked about what gender we identify with. I was very confused, along with a lot of other classmates. And they could not ask their parents. She was uncomfortable, obviously 9 or 10 years old. And so she spoke at the event, and others did. This is the second, but the school board, is not that interested in what the people have to hear. And if you've seen these school board meetings in Fairfax County, Virginia, which is a very liberal area, but they're still upset, or around the country, parents are kind of fed up with the way school boards and teachers unions working with them, and the administration, which is usually opposing the unions, they're kind of working with the unions here to bring this in because they all politically ideology think a similar way, even in Sartell, which is a fairly conservative area. So they're having these listening sessions. We'll see what happens, but there's a lot of cryptic answers. There's a lot of ways they're defending the audit by saying it's focusing on mental health. Focusing on mental health, I mean, yes, that's a great idea. Focus on anti-bullying, but not focusing on race.
Yes.
And what the CRT supporters talk about is always, we need to teach about racism and slavery. And I always say, good, we do.
The teachers are trying to be the parents. Am I being too?
Well, that's been it's.
Don't tell your parents this. Don't tell your parents what I'm going to say here.
Well, and that comes from above, from the district or from the opportunist involved. I don't think the average teacher wants to tell that to the kid, but you went to school, I went to school. We learned about racism and slavery. In fact, if you ask someone in the street, what'd you learn about in history class? Probably slavery would be one of the first two things they'd say, along with maybe George Washington or something. So
Right.
the idea we're not teaching racism and slavery is BS. And that's all the defenders can say. You don't want to teach racism and slavery. Of course we do. We don't want to teach revisionist history that says America is an evil country, because compared to anywhere else in the world, you want to see racism and slavery and homophobia and things like that, go to most of the rest of the world. America was obviously a country that fought a war where 650,000 men died to eradicate slavery. Other countries either allowed it to go on or they didn't have a war.
650,000, most of them are white.
Yeah, but plenty of them were black too. But yes, most of them were white. And that's worth mentioning. This lady who's, you can play anything you want. The bottom's about 7 minutes. There's a black woman here who speaks after about a minute or two. She's pretty powerful. If you skip through this to about the 2-minute mark, you can probably hear.
Okay.
That's good right there. Goes on for a couple of minutes, but go
Okay,
ahead.
I'll play about a minute of this.
Okay, so my name is Casa Wagner, address E15 10th Avenue North, Sartell. So I listened to most of the speakers as they made their side and their point. Within the last month, since the last school board meeting and the work session, there has been a lot of talk about moving forward. What does that mean or look like? There has been talks about equity and not leaving any child behind. With all of this lingo, the logistics and the optics is pretty much comes down to the fact that you guys have already made up your minds.
That's part of the problem.
You all, as a board, decided to take upon yourself to teach a very divisive curriculum without considering the real opinions of all of us here, as well as the parents, students, and everyone else, as well as the teachers. Putting a lipstick and a wig on a pig does not make the pig a lady. In fact, it is still a pig. Whatever morals and values, as well as political affiliates we all belong to.
Go to about 4 minutes and 40 seconds or so. Let's go ahead a little bit. It gets better at the end. Maybe 4:45 or so.
That is what make this country
We're
great.
at about 4:25 right now.
Go about 30 more seconds.
Our children's
That's good.
person teach a black kid how to be white.
Right.
We all need to just teach our children to respect all people regardless of skin color. So let's stop making everything about race. Let's stop making everything to be politically correct. And let's stop bending to the so-called woke movement, and let our district be set apart from the rest of other districts around this nation. We need to stop trying to fix what is not broken within our districts. If we want other alternatives,
They're telling her to stop speaking. They're saying time.
amongst our district and the various schools,
Yeah, there's a time limit.
I will be all for it. I will be the front runner for
It goes for about another minute. Just let it roll for the last minute.
Okay.
Speak about how we all can make our community more diverse and speak about the difficult challenges that we're all facing, regardless of skin color. However, I will not stand behind the bending of this woke movement and the destruction of our education system due to extremist ideology that is divisive and tears down the innocence of our children to see color rather than character. Also, why is it that when the situation happened last year with George Floyd,
There was a girl who committed suicide in the district last week. She's talking about.
the death of Sophie Whelan, let's say her name. She was part of this community. Due to the circumstances, we need to acknowledge that. We need to acknowledge that. And I agree with some of the speakers here that said that thank you very much. Appreciate it. Let her finish.
Wow.
You guys skipped over me, so I need to be heard. I need to be heard. You skipped over me, so I need to be heard. Let's say her name and stop sitting here and giving moment of silence to a career criminal where we can have a moment of silence.
Career criminal?
And a standing. So
I
yeah,
love
so
it.
she spoke. Look, it's a mostly white district. She's a black woman. She tells it like it is. They tried to cut her off. It's pretty interesting. And before
When
that,
somebody has a good point, they tend to do that.
yeah, and I guess apparently they may have skipped over her earlier in the session when she wanted to speak. So she was a little upset as it went. And the little girl who spoke. So the little girl who spoke is going to be on Fox News Monday. I found out about 2 hours ago.
Okay.
Fox News, the Fox and Friends, the morning show. So she'll definitely be on there, probably with her mother, and she'll probably mention Alpha News, maybe. And this article's gotten like 75,000 views now, and the video's gotten like 30 or 40,000. So it's a record setter. I had a feeling it would be. This stuff is very divisive and very popular amongst people who want to talk about it today, even in the summer while teachers are vacationing.
Yeah, it's interesting. While the teachers are out on their annual vacations, we've got a lot. The debate rages on. It doesn't stop when the school.
Right. I call it the 100 days of summer in Minnesota. The teachers have 100 days off from May 26th until September 10th or whatever. 100 paid, taxpayer-funded days off. I haven't taken 100 days off in the last 10 years of work combined, I don't think.
Yeah. August 16th, they get back with it in the Nebraska school districts. So, but anyways, I want to get back to some of what the other stories that you've been.
Yeah, go right ahead.
With Alpha News. So I'm going to go back here. And, you just go to an AJ Kaufman article and just click his name. It's the easiest way to find your material over the last days and weeks and months. But I wanted to start with, and this would have been a little over a week ago you wrote this. U.S. drug overdoses break a record last year amid lockdowns, as I predict it would happen. Mm-hmm. Expand on what's going on, because
it's very sad. It's a nonpartisan issue, I'd like to think, but it's not almost 100,000 Americans died of drug overdoses in 2020, which now we're halfway through 2021, so I'm assuming it'll be close. Hopefully not as high this year. That was up 30% from 2019 when it was 71,000, and significantly up, by the way, over the last 10 years, every year. Largest increase in about 20 years. They had leveled off a little bit. Obviously, you can look at the states where it's happening, including Nebraska, and one of the biggest rises in overdose deaths. That could be misleading because it's possible Nebraska or Virginia or Vermont had a low number before. This is just the increase. But still, a large increase in every state except for two, and
South Dakota being one.
Yeah, they made. And New Hampshire had a high rate beforehand, so it's hard. It's misleading. A lot of it was due to what do they call it? Fentanyl, which people don't know is in the drugs they're taking. It's really weird, and it's very lethal. And people who are psychologists and others know more about this than you or I do, but you can't mix these kind of things. It'll kill you. And of course, you combine that with the social changes that were brought upon by the COVID-19 pandemic, the isolation, the lockdowns, people not going outside or being able to go outside. Mental health, as my wife knows, has been a big problem, and so have drug overdoses. So people lost their social support systems, and the healthcare systems weren't able to tend to them either because they were dealing with COVID. So it's a terrible thing. And you're right there. Yeah, 69,000 of the 93,000 were opioid related. That's, drugs essentially.
75%.
Right. So COVID's killed 600,000 people. We hear about that every day. It's terrible, but drugs have killed 100,000. Well, 100,000 last year, probably another 40 or 50,000 already this year. So about a quarter as many. And it hits younger people, which doesn't mean that they're more or less important. But in the cumulative years of future life lost, it actually went up being more because COVID's mostly killing people over 65. as we know.
Yeah, and especially, I mean, I can tell you for a fact because I work in a way in healthcare. Every medical clinic, masks are required. So to
Here
this
too.
day, and it'll be that way for quite a while. And as you know, despite all the vaccinations and everything, and we've argued on this, the COVID numbers have gone up 67,000 as of yesterday. It's been, I wrote about it on kacmedia.com. Unfortunately, we're heading back towards the 100,000 case per day mark. And what I'm worried about on that is, are we going to have another round of these lockdowns? Are we going to empty out all the stadiums again and play in front of cardboard cutouts? I mean, where is this? And, you know, you've alluded to the Olympics going on. They're playing those in empty venues that have been built for years, you know, anticipating the Olympics might as well be done in a television studio. It has to be have to be done in Tokyo. It could be done anywhere. But I'm just worried that we have a generation that is going to go back to being, you know, secluded, having to be behind closed doors, and what that's going to lead to in the years down the road.
And that won't accomplish anything, though. We've seen in the past when states like Texas and Mississippi, Georgia opened up quickly, the deaths went down. The cases really didn't go up, despite what the people on the left said about human sacrifice and another Holocaust. And we've seen in California, New York, and New Jersey, and Minnesota, and Illinois, and places where the lockdowns were stricter, they haven't done any better. And the vaccination numbers they do vary by state, but generally they're anywhere from 60 to 75% in most states. Most of these cases, not all, but majority, over 90%, I believe, are amongst the unvaccinated. I'm not someone who likes to yell about the unvaccinated. I got vaccinated. You did too. I do believe people have personal choice. I don't believe you need to go door to door to tell them. But if they're choosing not to get vaccinated and they get sick, it's unfortunate, but that's most likely because they chose not to get vaccinated. Now, thankfully, there are not a lot of deaths attributed to this, more than I'd like to see. But majority of people who get it are fine, or they're hospitalized and they don't die because, well, just the way it is. And if they do die, there's always these comorbidities, such as I saw a number. There are 140 people who have died since January 1st in Illinois that have been vaccinated, right? So that's a lot of people that have been vaccinated to die in 7 months. But of those cases, nearly all of them had comorbidities. It was like, I have 34% diabetes, 23% chronic kidney disease, 23% immunocompromised conditions, and 7% other autoimmune diseases. And they're probably older. So again, it's a situation where age and health matter. And for schools, I mean, no kids are dying. 286 kids. Again, every life, disclaimer, is a tragedy if you lose it as a child, certainly. But 286 kids, more than that, certainly die of the flu each year and other things. So of the however many millions of kids have gotten COVID, 286 have died, and only a couple thousand have been seriously ill. So the teachers are obviously the ones who are selfish. If the teacher's vaccinated and the kids, they're fine. If you want to put masks on in the classroom, not thrilled by it, but as long as the schools are open, that's the most important thing. So you can't live in fear. You have to accept some risk with life.
And it's tragic what happened in the nursing homes, and there was a lot of media coverage about what happened in New York and New Jersey, and Governor Cuomo in New York was under fire for it, and rightfully so. But as sad as that is, what I'm worried about is what's happening with our youth. Kids are in school, and what this is leading to, and what you brought out with the fentanyl and prescription pain pills and prescriptions of those like. So I thought it was a very good job of what you did. You even quoted NPR in the article.
Well, because in that issue, it was pretty nonpartisan. I mean, kids having idle time, especially kids over 12, never a good idea to kids to have idle time. That only leads to things like drugs, alcohol, sex, unwanted pregnancies. I mean, kids with idle time is just bad. Teenagers, especially.
Yeah, or video games. Well, maybe video games are the least of the.
That's the least of my concerns, right? Yeah.
But we're getting back to other things. I know Cuba's something that's something that you've always followed, and things went, major actually in Florida and other places. And you wrote about this last week as well. So, as Cubans have continued protests in Miami and other areas, what's going on there?
Been almost 2 weeks. It really started 2 weeks ago tomorrow in a small town in Cuba. And they're certainly the biggest protest in the 62 years of the communist dictatorship there. But the biggest ones in 25 years, they've got social media now, which if the government can't shut down, is a major way to know what's going on and spread the message. Hopefully we can support them having a free internet. And as Marco Rubio, who's senator from Florida, who's from Cuba originally, he said something has changed. There's a rupture between the people and the regime, and the government's lost the legitimacy to govern. I think this will be the beginning of the end of the Cuban dictatorship, but it's not going to be overnight. Hopefully it goes better than it did in Venezuela, which is still under a dictator, but it hasn't been 62 years there. There are people in Cuba who were 60 years old, 65 really, who have never lived in freedom, not to mention all the people that are younger.
And what do they drive down there?
Right. They drive 1950s vehicles.
They're being held up with duct tape and everything else.
Yeah, it's a North Korean style dictatorship, and it's only 90 miles from the country. And most all Republicans are on the right side of this, as are most Democrats. The Biden administration was a little bit slow, as they tend to be. But you do have Black Lives Matter, which, a lot of these do-gooder white liberal kids gave money to last year. This is a communist, pro-communist, anti-American, racist organization, Black Lives Matter. They have been since their charter 6 or 7 years ago, and they condemned the United States. They didn't condemn Cuba. They condemned the United States for their inhumane treatment and their embargo. The embargo has no effect on what's going on. Food and medicine get their fine, and they can trade with every other country in the world, and they have tourism from other countries. So, of course, the Black Lives Matter said that, and you had AOC and Bernie Sanders, the two dumbest people in Washington, saying the same thing, which of course was repeated, I'm sure, by other people. But I question is Colin Kaepernick, Coca-Cola, Nike, LeBron James, some of these people that are very supportive of these efforts.
Can I end the revisionist history on Colin Kaepernick?
Sure.
You remember this 5 years ago, and I remember trying to tell you what was going on. Colin Kaepernick, he didn't kneel. He sat his ass on the bench during the national anthem before the 49ers' third preseason game of the 2016 season.
In San Diego, as I recall.
They were actually at home. They were playing Green Bay. So that's why I was happy to be watching.
Okay.
He was upset he wasn't starting that night.
Right.
Someone else started, and Kaepernick came in the third quarter. He played with the scrubs in the third and fourth quarters. That's what he was upset about. The following week, yes, the 49ers usually play their final preseason game against the Chargers. And in that particular year, that would have still been in San Diego. And that's when he, in workouts that week, he wore socks that had
that was a mistake
on them and that. And then that's when he did the kneel. And that's when Colin Kaepernick turned it into a social justice issue. It started off as him being pissed off about not starting a critical preseason game.
Ironically, yeah.
Open the season as a starting quarterback, and he evolved it and has made a lot of money off of it. I mean,
of course, there's a lot of money in protesting, and I'm not going to say hatred, but I mean, there's a lot of money in it. It's amazing, and he said some nice things about Castro. He's not very informed, but the corporations that condemn America, that don't condemn Cuba, it's pretty amazing. I mean, Black Lives Matter is not about fighting racism in America, really. It doesn't care about the Cuban government's oppression of their own people. It's about trying to make us into Cuba, which won't happen, thankfully. But they really are amazing. They came out in favor of the Palestinians or Hamas against Israel. Every time they have a chance to side against America or our allies, the Marxists who run that organization do that. And there's a comment here in my article. Jeff Jacoby says here, it may comfort the diehard left to imagine Washington is at the root of the island's distress, but there's a reason why those throngs of brave Cubans in the street were chanting down with the dictatorship and not down with the embargo. They know their agonies caused by the ruthless despots who for more than 6 decades have stopped at nothing to keep them in chains. Again, Bernie Sanders, AOC, Michael Moore, Sean Penn, they may not get this, but in reality, the Biden administration does. We're not going to war there. Everyone always says, we're going to war. No, we're not going to war. No one's suggesting that. But we should let some of the refugees from Cuba in. And I know people who are saying, well, you won't let the people in from south of the border in Mexico and Guatemala. Totally different amount of people, totally different reasons. And, depending on their situation, if they're not criminals, there are ways to get in. I mean, they all are in. They're just awaiting the trials they'll never show up at. But I'll point out another thing. I kind of talked about this at the end of the article, which made the article kind of long. These regimes like Cuba, North Korea, China, they're not just communist. These are racist regimes. These are anti-gay regimes. These are anti-female regimes. You have people like, the Morris, Phillips, Epstein, Stein, Peterson, Bajak crowd who are all on the side of gays and minorities, and that's all fine and dandy. Cuba's about as anti-gay as you can get and about as anti-minority, especially anti-black as you can get. The inequality there plagues all Cubans, but disproportionately African Americans. 30 to 40% of people in Cuba who are white or light-skinned have family in the US, 5% of African Cubans. Almost none of them are in college, okay? The prison population is disproportionately black. And as you circled there, about 2/3 of white Cubans have annual incomes under $3,000, which is crazy, by the way, in any respect. 2/3 of the country makes less than $3,000. But among Afro-Cubans, it's 95%. And that's where a lot of the biggest protests are. That's where the song was written that began the rallying cry. That's where the protest started. And you can read the article, but there's no utopian regime there. And Americans that went down there as tourists and gave them their tourist dollars, and plenty of them were Republicans too, not just liberals. That was stupid. You're promoting the regime. You're helping the regime that's going to, because there's no private enterprise there. You're helping the regime that's trying to use tyranny to oppress people for 6 decades. And, we talk about it here. Prolonged power outages, no food, crowded buses.
Right.
Everyone gets this who has a brain. Unless you really hate America, and I do firmly believe there are at least 2% of the country hates their country. Bernie Sanders, Nicole Hannah-Jones, Michael Moore, some of these folks, they do not like America. I don't know why, but they don't. So they're always going to try to find a way to.
Michael Moore's still around?
Well, he made that movie 10 years ago that said that Cuba's the greatest place on earth, great healthcare, great reading programs, Bernie Sanders is an AOC are the bigger problems. Those two.
Confirm this. I was at the Guantanamo Bay base once, and this is almost 40 years ago. And I recall some employees that work at the Navy exchanges or other installations on base, kind of your little special services types things, bowling alleys, what have you. They had some Cuban employees there. I guess they actually lived off base, and they were actually one of the few Cubans that actually get inside and at least experience a little bit of American lifestyle.
At Guantanamo, no less, right? At Guantanamo.
Exactly. Yes.
Wow.
Exactly. But I know we're a little more than an hour into this, and I know that we've also, something else that you wanted to talk about is the Olympics. And as someone named Jesse Einfeld would say, someone who lives in the outback in Nebraska, just someone's name I wanted to get in here, said that even up to the last minute, the status of the Olympics was as clear as mud. What do you think's going out there? We hear a lot more. We don't hear a heck of a lot about what goes on in the actual events, but we hear, as usual, more about the backstories and what have you. What's your take of everything that goes on at the Olympics?
I've never liked the Olympics. I've liked them less and less as time goes on. They're, for the most part, almost every sport, with the exception of maybe basketball, baseball, and a few others, no one cares about at all. They watch the kayaking and the handball and the badminton every 4 years because
swimming is a pretty big deal.
Yeah, honestly, people look, swimming and track can be exciting, but no one watches swimming and track for 4 years. People generally watch it because they're told by NBC to watch it. They see it advertised and they watch it. I've never been like that. I've never decided to watch things because someone else, maybe if it's my wife or my mother, it's different. But when Bob Costas or the commercials tell me to watch something, I don't follow track for other 4 years. Therefore, I'm not going to watch the pole vault. So I don't care. We waste a lot of time on sports. We know that, but you and I like sports. I'm not going to waste time in the Olympics. Okay. It's just silly. And when you throw out in the fact there's always politics, you throw in the fact this year there's no fans, you throw in the fact that it's in Tokyo, which I think Japan's a great country compared to China, certainly, but it's all the things are going to be on tape delay pretty much. Maybe right now, if it's 10 a.m. there, you might be able to get something live, but generally it's all on tape delay. So you're going to know.
They're probably Olympic event. They are probably showing live Olympic events. You're talking about 10:15 Central Time, and there are probably live events that NBC are showing right now because it is in the Far East.
Right. So you can watch Gwen Berry kneel, or you can watch Osaka, the lady who said she's introverted and antisocial, but now likes to be on the cover of
I thought Osaka pulled out of the Olympics.
Okay, maybe she did.
I could be wrong.
You can watch Megan Rapinoe yell about things, and hope. By the way, for everyone watching,
did win a game.
I have heard people I'm surprised to even hear. Now, most of them are conservatives, say they hope the U.S. women's soccer team loses every game. And so do I. I've never cheered against America. I think the best thing would ever be if they lost every game or didn't win and they went home as losers, because they are losers as people. Not all, I don't know all the players, but the 3 or 4 main ones, including the pink hair Danielle Beebe lesbian, is terrible. They're just terrible people. They're just terrible people.
Well, I'm not going to say anything against the LGBT community.
No, I have nothing about the LGBT community. About these women who hate America, that kneel and spit and step on the flag, and the whole thing with the World War II guy playing the national anthem where they weren't looking. They're egomaniacal jerks, and that happens in all sports. But you're a women's soccer player. You're not that important. I'm sorry, you're just not.
Because I'm sure Alex Morgan's a great person.
She's one of those I don't like either.
Charlie Lloyd, I don't know all the names of them, and it's like I don't want to get out of hate.
There are a lot of them are very privileged women who they stand up for gay rights here, but do they stand up for gay rights in Africa or the Middle East or even Latin America? No, they're cowards and hypocrites. Now, I'm sure a few of them I don't know as well are fine. The one who's married to the Eagles player, I think I've heard she's a decent person. Yes. Yeah, but their leaders are. The one leader that everyone knows is awful, and she's in every commercial still. Why do these companies hire America haters?
For Subway commercials. I can't watch a Major League game and there's a Subway ad.
I haven't eaten Subway in years because they had the child molester guy as a spokesman for a long time, the Jared.
Oh, yeah.
And they've had some other jerks on there. Yeah, and Nike, of course, Nike goes out of their way to have Colin Kaepernick, Megan Rapinoe, LeBron James, Jay-Z, whoever the people that I dislike the most. Seems like Nike goes out of their way. I've gotten rid of almost all my Nike stuff. When you come by, if I have anything left, I'll let you know. I've been tossing it into the veterans bin, Goodwill. I will not wear, unless I got something that's fairly new, I will not wear Nike anymore. And Major League Baseball adopts Nike as their freaking supplier to ruin all the
uniforms. Some outdated stuff here. It actually doesn't. Yeah, I have a Majestic logo here.
Majestic's fine. New Balance is fine. Rawlings, they're all good. Nike doesn't give a crap about baseball. I can't believe they put those switches.
If I have a Nike logo on my Brewers stuff, it's
maybe it's Fanatics.
In a hidden place. Yeah, it's Fanatics.
Fanatics is all good with me.
Fanatics.
By the way, and then we're going to have the Olympics next year in Beijing. Basically Nazi Germany. Basically, we're going to have it in and give them all the money and power. A country that's genociding people.
Months away. That's why NBC's carrying the Super Bowl a year late next year.
A year
so
late.
It could be a lead.
Oh, I see.
Yes.
Yeah, I can't. I just can't believe we're not boycotting.
But
I think it's such a bad idea not to boycott. There's no reason we should be going there, and I don't care about the athletes because they live in America and benefit from here. They should not be going over there and supporting evil regimes, and they can deal with it. Some things are more important than your bobsledding and your skiing.
An alternate event. You may be too young to remember, but Ted Turner came up with something called the Goodwill Games.
Yeah.
And it cost a lot of money.
Yeah.
But at least there was that, and it didn't get a whole lot of coverage.
They could have an alternate event. They should have moved it they're too late now. They should have moved it 8 months ago when this all started. I was discussing this back in October. They should have moved it. It would have been easy. China just had the goddamn Summer Olympics a couple of years ago.
Well, 2008. Or no, 2008.
Okay, but China's got it. You have it in Russia. You already had it. You have it in the World Cup in Qatar. Why do we keep giving evil regimes the chance to have these great events?
And in the World Cup, they're going to hold it in the around Christmas time.
Yeah, Qatar.
Yeah, in Qatar. They're going to hold it in November, December.
That's because of the weather.
Held in June or July, so they're going to hold it right smack in the middle of the quote domestic seasons.
Well, that's because of weather, but honestly, they bribed the FIFA, the most corrupt sports group.
Oh, Qatar told them that they're going to have all these air-conditioned stadiums all ready to go and that. And they realized they weren't doing that, and how many people are dying trying to build the damn things.
There's a lot of North Koreans and Chinese and others have gone there to build, and the international sports tend to be corrupt and political, and that's why I don't generally watch a lot of international sports.
Yeah, I'll watch a regular season Premier League game or whatever.
Well, it's a little different. I mean like international, like Olympics, World Cup type sports.
And, they had the Euro, and the whole thing was just about a boy. And then what happened with England? England lost the championship game to Italy, and they were about to lionize all of the English players for winning what would have been their first major championship since winning the 1966 World Cup. They fell just short. They could have stood behind them. What happened instead?
Racism.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's a black player. I don't know if he missed one of the penalty kicks.
He did 3 of them, 3 in a row.
Yes. It's like, if the Milwaukee Bucks would have lost to the Phoenix Suns, we would have said we're still your guys are still number 1 in our hearts. You don't want to lose the championship. But you're not going to go making death threats towards people if somebody made a turnover in Game 7 or something. No,
but honestly, this is the lesson for the people we were talking about earlier, some of our woke friends. Even their beloved Europe, which is such a sophisticated place in their minds, they have, as you know, from Poland with some of their racism and anti-Semitism at soccer. European soccer fans are not all of them, certainly, and probably not even 10% of them, but they have a lot of racist and anti-Semitic and bigoted hooligan fans that we don't have here. One guy in Boston yelled at Adam Jones allegedly 6 years ago. I mean, this doesn't happen much in the US, but in soccer, you hear about it all the time, not to mention in Mexico where they yell puta, 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 as you know.
Well, when the other team takes a goal kick.
Yeah, right.
Even when they played the NFL there, when the opposing team that they didn't like kicked off, whoever was playing the Raiders or whoever was down there.
Well, let me close with this a little on a
this is our potpourri session.
Not even much potpourri. The St. Cloud Rocks, my home team, are now 37-12 in the Northwoods League after beating second place Mankato tonight. That's a .755 winning percentage. They're on pace to shatter the Northwoods League record for wins, even in a shortened season, by the way. Only 68 games. I believe the record for wins is 50. They are on pace to win, I think, 51 or 52 right now out of 68. Mankato's very good, but they're now 3.5 games back of St. Cloud in the second half. And obviously, St. Cloud already clinched by winning the first half. They're probably going to play Mankato anyway, but they will probably have home field throughout the playoffs. I don't see if St. Cloud beats Mankato tomorrow. They'll go up 4 games and they don't play again the final 2.5 weeks. I think St. Cloud will hold on to that. And it should be a fun week in the middle of August, which, as you know, is what do you call it? Very, very tense moments for Ari in the mid-August.
But what happens if they lose? What happens if the manager makes some pitching change or doesn't make some pitching change in the 10th inning? What is going to happen? What will be your view of the viewpoint if that team does anything short than winning the entire Northwoods League playoffs?
Well, it happened in 2015. They were the best team all year, and then they lost in the semifinals to Eau Claire. I mean, it's baseball.
Is that the year you were asked to leave Joe Faber Field?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Before, they won in 2017 though. That was good. Baseball, I think, can happen. The playoffs this year now are a best of 3 type thing, so it's a little easier. I assume that they're not going to have the extra inning rule. I know Major League Baseball in the playoffs doesn't have the man on second to start the extra inning rule. I assume the Northwoods League won't. Yeah, so unlike the soccer where you have penalty kicks to decide the whole championship, they'll decide it
At
on the.
least there's some excitement in the regular season baseball rule, which surprisingly Manfred says that he is going to do away. Well, the CBA's up. Everything's on the table.
Yeah, Manfred makes the wrong decision on everything. And the funny thing is, I don't really dislike the
Carry
extra
off
inning rule.
season coming up.
What's that?
It's carry off season coming up for
Yeah.
Major League Baseball.
Well, the extra inning rule, look, not for the playoffs, but on a Tuesday night game in August when there's Twins are playing, the Tigers, I don't need 13 innings. I got to be honest. I don't mind that rule. It really, I think it's an okay rule. I don't like anything to do with clocks. It never even matters. The pitchers are always ready in 2 minutes. I don't need clocks, and I certainly don't need, well, I don't know what you call it, but
7 double headers.
Those are done, which I'm mixed on that. I get it, but I also know the Northwoods League plays 9-inning doubleheaders.
I think I heard. I think it was Brian Anderson, or maybe it was someone else that was doing Brewer games this past week. Goes, I'm all for the 7 inning. It's all different. I'm going, no. Maybe if a game is rained out, have a 9-inning game and a 7-inning game.
That's a good balance.
Baseball and independent league baseball does it, but no, it's like I don't want to pay full price for.
Right, that's what I was going to say. I saw the craziest thing was the Tigers and Twins did a day-night doubleheader. Usually they're back-to-back, a day-night, a 1 and a 7, and they played 7 innings both times. So you're charging people full price for a 7-inning game.
That's my point.
So yeah, it's not good. And I don't want to see any increase in replay, by the way. I don't like replay because a lot of times, when the guy doesn't catch the ball in left field, but they call it a catch and the play ends and everyone's back? That's a problem because the game was.
If what I alluded to in Milwaukee tonight, if there wasn't replay and we would have saw this replay moments later that, hey, the guy missed home plate completely. It goes, okay, well, the ump was getting hit by the ball, so he couldn't see it anyways. It happens. It happens. In the end, ball usually doesn't lie.
That's what I hear. I think though, replay, like strike zone replay, which a lot of people like, boy, that would be.
Coming in 2030.
Well, if you can wait 8 or 9 years, maybe. No, it's every umpire is different strike zone. Honestly, it's true. But as long as you're consistent, I saw a guy at a Northwoods League game the other night. There's some bad umpiring in the Northwoods League. They're young guys, but he had a very, 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 very small strike zone. But you know what? He was consistent, and some of the pitchers looked at him, but he was not calling that pitch an inch off for either of them. So as long as you're consistent and this guy's got a very small strike zone, so be it.
You could replace you could take most of those umpires in the Northwoods League and have them replace Angel Fernandez.
Well, I'm sure.
And it'd be
TB Buckner.
CB Buckner, yeah, that one too.
Yeah, there should be forced retirements, but they have a very strong union, and there's plenty of guys in Double and AAA that are really good.
And the other thing I want to note is the NBA, who continues to bring in women officials, and it's all virtual signaling. But how many of them got to work playoff games? Even the first round? Because the NBA announced their entire roster, and I was expecting something historic, that 1 or 2 of the female. I saw one of them decide a game between the Phoenix Suns and the Milwaukee Bucks during the regular season. That a guy barely got touched, called a foul on him, went to the free throw line with no time left, won the game. That was a regular season game.
So are you saying now there's the Bajek, Peterson, Epstein, Morris, Stein, Phillips thing, which would say the NBA is discriminating against women. But in reality, I'm assuming you're saying the NBA evaluates objectively the best officials and lets them do the playoffs, and the women were not among the best officials.
Yes.
My God, not that hard.
If the NBA is going to be consistent, a couple of them should have made the cut and done first round games or even second round playoff games. If we want to make what they perceive as real progress, that's what the NBA should have done. And I think that Adam Silver is actually a bit ahead of, he's not perfect, but at least he has some decent ideas out there. He wants to do kind of a March Madness style tournament in the
Yeah, some of the ideas they need to, and as a hockey fan, I say it, they need the NBA and NHL need to shorten their seasons. This year was better. You do not need 82 games when you have 2 months of playoffs. Now, the NBA may or may not shorten the season. They may switch some things around, but these guys are going to be freaking playing again in 2 months. I know it's a different year because of COVID, but the season should not be starting in October ever for basketball. And frankly, hockey, probably not either.
Season.
What's that?
I guess we're back to an 82 game season at least next year.
Oh, I'm sure. Well, a lot of it's about money, but it's too long. If you're going to go 82, if you really have to, then shorten the damn playoffs. Both sports. Being fair, you don't need best of 7 in round 1, especially in basketball, where there's almost never an upset in round 1, really. Very rare.
Well, I mean, we did have a number 3 seed play a number 2 seed in the finals. And like I said, it was actually
good. That was good, but they would have gotten there
between the Nets and the Bucks. You were even intrigued by that.
I said I was, but the NBA added a freaking 7, 10, 8, 9 2-day fiesta sometime in mid-May with like teams that were 30 and 52 were playing Memphis and the Lakers, and that was I couldn't believe they did that before. They killed another week before the playoffs even started.
That kind of added some intrigue. I know
God.
the games weren't much, but I mean, I agree with you there. But at least there was an idea. But you have to shorten the regular season. Go ahead, do that regular season tournament, expand to 32 teams, and it could be like a little mini March Madness.
And baseball needs to make the wild card best of 3 or something. You can't have single elimination.
And then make the division series a best of 7. That's maybe the other thing about that.
I would like that, but baseball's so reticent to expand because these morons have never looked at a map and are afraid of weather in possibly 2 cities on November 1st, when in reality, only about 4 or 5 cities are really ever cold in late October, and they probably aren't getting to the World Series anyway. Who's been in the World Series recently? LA, Tampa, Houston,
that
Washington.
Haley's Comet event is coming around again, where the Twins actually make it back to the World Series.
Well, that would be great, and it would be cold, most likely. But I can't remember the last time there was a cold World Series game. Even when the Cubs and Indians played, I think they only had 1 or 2 cold games, and that would have been the year you would have expected. Cubs and Indians. Those are 2 of the 5 cold cities.
And if a cold snap comes in, you shut everything down for a few days, and then you'll
these
find
people are not very innovative. They're scared of November. They're literally scared of the word November. That's what
even in Minneapolis, they got a heated feel. If 18 inches of snow falls on Halloween, they'll have it cleared out in 3 days.
Right. And that only happens every other year. So it's like, it really is, but it really is only 4 or 5 cities: Minneapolis, Cleveland, Chicago, maybe Detroit, and maybe Boston and Denver. But that's it. Never that cold in New York.
Denver can go either. Denver, you can
Never
play
go either way.
Game in January on some nights.
Yeah, so I wouldn't worry about Denver. And frankly, the Rockies are not going to the World Series anytime soon, nor the Tigers, nor the Twins. Cubs and White Sox in Boston.
Well, I be careful what you said. I said, if the Bucks ever win an NBA championship, I can die in peace. Well, you know what? It's about 10:30 now. I was 12 years old this morning. Look how old I am now. It's like that movie that just came out. You age 1 year every 15 minutes.
Where's your Bucks jerseys? Where's your Bucks gear?
You know what? That thing is in the wash. I have my Giannis jersey in the. He gave me 15 minutes notice to be out here tonight.
All right. Well, in that case, we can wrap it up. It's 10:30.
Covering it for my website, kacmedia.com.
Yeah, go there for all the best stories. KAC Media. It's 10:30 p.m. in God's country, and we'll close it out here.
Thank you, and we'll be back in a couple of weeks. You'll be on Ed Moore at TEMS. You'll be back on there at some point, I imagine. But or I'm waiting for you to show up on the Kennedy Man panel. That's what I'm waiting for.
I would love it. She's a beautiful woman. Yeah.
Anyways, that's all we have for tonight. Have a great rest of the weekend, everyone. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.